Welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears. If you're a first time visitor to the channel, this is dedicated for 8 areas of maturity. Um, if you're a subscriber and you've been here before, you'll have an idea about what areas that is. Uh, I have decided that I'm going to pursue this in the most authentic and sincere way possible. Um, I'm out to take away the look good and to not try to polish this thing in such a way that I'm overly sterile and kind of take my personality out of it. So today's conversation, I'm going to talk about the second area of maturity of the 8, and that is community. Um, what gives me the place to speak from, since this does come up fairly often, and for the listeners and people that have subscribed and followed this channel, you guys will have already heard this enough. And as I get feedback regularly, it's like you don't have to justify yourself, things like that. And I appreciate that for you guys. And for you that are new, just to give you a little bit of an idea here, is that I did study psychology in college. I have gone through some different advanced trainings, and this is a particular direction that clicks for me. I just seem to understand people in a different way. I'm not saying that I understand the entirety of human beings. When I talk about reality, because reality is, we all reflect reality in our experiences, and that's how we communicate with other people, is the way that we've seen and experienced the world. And I try not to dismiss too much, because I feel that I'm right about the way the reality is, and I look at it that other people have had their experiences, and I try to stay as open-minded as possible, and I try to lead with a desire to connect. So with that, curiosity is a strength that I have. I'm commonly, mislabeled, in my opinion, with people saying that I'm incredibly intelligent. I dismiss that to an extent, simply because I feel that it's more curiosity that they're witnessing, and not necessarily that I have some sort of significant and ridiculous IQ. That's not really something that I've had proven in my lifetime that it's been tested, that would leave people going, wow, you're ridiculously intelligent. Just curious. So I say that because I don't want you to separate yourself from me and think that I'm some sort of special, human being that you're not capable of, finding degrees of insights like I have. So my goal is to try to elevate and to lift up others in such a way that they're capable of creating the life they want. So I'll share my stories. I'll share my insights. But one thing that you're likely not going to get from me is advice. And I'll make that clear in the early end, because I don't give advice unless you're a client. And if you're a client, that means I have my time with you, and I have my abilities to extract the information necessary to try to come up with the best direction to offer advice, because I feel that advice comes with a lot. It's not just something you offer somebody passively and walk away from. But insights is something different. It's just the experiences and something that it's a viewpoint, but it's not, it's just up to the other person if they decide they really want to see the world that way or not. So, all right. Now that that's been stated, community. My early beginnings. I'm the second to youngest out of 6 boys. By the time I was born, I'd already had a brother that had passed away from meningitis. It was misdiagnosed. He was 3 years old when he passed. I could not imagine the pain that my parents went through. My oldest brother, cerebral palsy, so he was bedridden, special needs. And then, comes my second oldest brother, and, then the brother that had passed away, just Kevin. Never had a chance to meet him. And then there's my brother Jason, myself, and then Craig. So we already started off with a pretty decent community, mother, father, and then my, living brothers. Craig not born yet, but when I was brought into the world, I still had, 3 brothers that were older than myself. So there's the first part of a community. Age groups. I used to joke and say that my parents had like basically like litters of two, if you will. Um, Adam, my oldest, with cerebral palsy. Unfortunately, he's passed as well back in the early 2000s, considered to be, his death was natural causes. Uh, Michael, less than 2 years younger than Adam, and then several years go by, and then Kevin, and then Jason, less than 2 years, and then several years, actually almost 4 years goes by. Then I'm born, and then less than 2 years, there comes Craig. My father was in the Navy, and my mother was a stay-at-home. So yeah, he came back for leave, and yeah, couple kids, and then off on deployment again. He retired from the Navy, so he had 20 years of service there. Anyway, all right. So now you've got an idea about the family unit, which is the first community. Then there's immediate family, and then neighbors and friends and things like that, which I don't recall a lot. My earliest memories probably go back to, yeah, I would say somewhere around late twos, early threes, something like that. Um, yeah. So a lot of interesting little stories, but for today, um, I really wanted to talk about how we're in a position right now with our social media and our current society that we're more encouraged to find our tribes we belong to and to whittle ourselves down into specific groups that actually break national pride in the name of group identities. If your skin tone is a certain, or if you have a specific racial background or a sexual preference or some sort of gender-based thing or something along those lines, it's creating these groups and these tribes that have a reason to dislike the country they live in. We were not always this way. This is kind of a newer development in the last 20 years. We've created a lot of division, and I find that this is something that if we don't turn it around and start looking at people in other groups as our brothers and sisters, as our national brothers and sisters, our countrymen, um, and then like to expand beyond that, because I don't want to stop just at the United States and to stop with my national pride and patriotism. My goal is to try to unify the species and stop whoever it is that has the intention and desires to separate us based off of whatever immutable characteristics that we have. Uh, I really I'm their enemy, and I'm not much of somebody, right? I'm just this guy that's talking into my computer. Uh, but we're we're on the wrong path, right? We're on a path that will only create enemies where they're not. Like I've learned in my lifetime, it doesn't matter your skin tone, your sexual preference, and your age, and all these other things. I can find a friend in you. I can find something that is someone that I can contribute to and that can contribute to me. I learned that, and I'll share that with you today. So, um, with my brothers, we're very dynamic in the way that we were. I am the most psychologically geared and fitted in the family. I've got more of a skill sets than that. My other brothers are different structures as far as their skill sets. My father was incredibly mathematically gifted and still to this day the smartest man that I've ever met. But he is in the totem pole of my experience, the totem of the totem pole of being unrefined intelligence. Now, it doesn't mean that he wasn't developed. He was well developed in specific areas. He went through a lot of different education certificates and classes throughout the Navy, and he's just such an incredibly intelligent man. But from what I observed, is it seemed like a transmission that didn't get the right gears. For what he had, he was incredibly intelligent. He didn't realize the full depth of his intelligence in his lifetime, unfortunately. That is just because he had other priorities to focus on. So, still the smartest man that I've ever met, and I've met some incredibly smart people. And it's not because of him being my father. It's just the fact that he's just so intelligent. Um, but different intelligence, right? Mine's more in the field of psychology and the focus on why people do what they do and things like that. But I'm not saying that I'm a guru or some sort of mastermind or something like that. I just have a very, very deep degree of interest and curiosity to better understand, because I want to bring us together. I don't want more division. So with that, um, along the way, in middle school, I developed social anxiety. So let's see, it was seventh grade. My mother worked as the school nurse, and this is whenever she got into working. She was a stay-at-home mother until I want to say she started going to college when I was in sixth grade, and she had got an LPN, so licensed practicing nurse, and she had wanted to go to RN, which is a registered nurse, and she didn't quite go that far. But she became a school nurse at the school I was at. It's the middle school. It's Parrott Middle School in Brooksville, Florida. And I was walking through one of the hallways, and I was going to see her. And it was during class, but I had a reason, and I forgot what it was why I was going to go see her. And as I was walking along, I just started feeling this incredible sense of like pressure. It almost felt like the walls were coming in onto me, and the hallway was empty. There was nobody in it. Everybody was in class, and it just felt this incredible sense of like, everything was collapsing in on me, and I didn't know what was going on, and my heart started to race. I could feel my pulse in my arms, or in my wrist, and throughout my arms without touching anything. I could just feel this incredible sense of, at the time I didn't know this was anxiety. I didn't know what was going on. I remember thinking about how my younger brother, who was almost 2 years younger than me, would be bullied by other people, and I had to stick up for him because that's the way that was in the family. Neighborhood kids, stuff like that. Oddly enough, though, in the family, my brother Jason, which is my older brother to me, next oldest, would partner up with the youngest to, stoke a fight between the youngest and myself, so Craig and myself. And anytime that I would get the upper hand, because I was older than Craig, bigger, stronger, that kind of thing, Jason would level the playing field by doing something to, pin me down or something like that, so that Craig could get his licks in, stuff like that. So yeah, it was really an interesting dynamic. But anyway, it's what brothers do. We fight, we play. We didn't have cable, we had 5 channels on television. We had to take the monkey or the pipe wrench out to the antenna to turn it, and then yell to each other to find out whether or not the signal was good enough so we could actually see something and hear something, so we could watch television. It was that kind of life. We grew up in rural Brooksville, here in Florida. So, but anyway, so I had, that was my setup, and I was thinking, I had to protect my brother. And it wasn't like it was some sort of like, a heavy thought or anything. It was, I've thought it before, but then all of a sudden all these other things came in, and, like the hallway was collapsing in on me, like the sensation of it. That's the best way to describe it. And then I just felt this sense of panic take over, and my heart was racing out of my chest. I felt like I had to run from the most vicious and nastiest creature that was just going to take my life away from me. And I got to this place, and I'm like, oh, I need to go, right? So I really started moving as fast as I could, got out of the hallway, went through part of the quad, and then, entered the next hallway, which had the nurse's office right there. Went in, and my mom goes, "What's wrong?" She could tell immediately without even talking to me something was wrong. I was, probably pale, and just all these issues. And she didn't know that was a panic attack either. I mean, she's a licensed practicing nurse, but I wouldn't expect her to have that depth of knowledge, but she just knew something was wrong, and I couldn't articulate it. I didn't know. It was the first time I experienced this. So, I sat in her office for a little while, and then eventually it just went away, and then I felt normal again, but I was kind of freaked out. I didn't know what the hell had happened. And then we would have, like lunch, and then we'd go out to the quad after lunch, and I would just stand there with my friends, but then I started to feel that panic again anytime I started to, like, get to move away from my friends, or if the group kind of like, the circle of friends, like 10 or whatever, kind of like, they would move a little bit of a distance. If I wasn't paying attention, then I realized they'd moved away and I was closer to another group of people that I wasn't that familiar with or didn't know at all. I started to feel that same sense of panic, and then I would move towards my group and it would start to go away. And that's when I started realizing what was going on. Now, again, I couldn't articulate it, I just started to put patterns together. Uh, and as this became more and more apparent to me, I realized that my father would not pay for me to go to a psychologist or to seek therapy or anything. Um, my mother had way too many responsibilities with work, plus, still having a lot of the responsibilities of raising us. Because my father often worked overtime. He worked in the power industry and for a power company. On the plant side, it was INC, and it was nuclear security with the INC, instrumentation calibration, which is a specific department which you had to be really intelligent to be in the first place. And also, he made really good money, which he did, enough to afford that my mom, was a stay-at-home until she got that, finally tired of sitting at the house, and got, her license to work as a nurse. So I just that wasn't the reality that I was going to have, was that I was going to be able to seek out therapy. And it wasn't even something that was even on my radar either. That's something, as I got older, I realized it could have been an option, but at the time I was like, whatever. Because hell, I wanted to join martial arts as a young guy. I wasn't really athletic, but I wanted to get into the martial arts because, I had practiced fighting my brothers my whole life, and I was not bad at fighting. I'm not going in the octagon or anything, and I really would rather not get into a fight with somebody, especially now at 45. A lot more risks come with that now. Not just legal, just physical harm to myself. Even if I win the fight, I'm probably going to break something, But anyway, so I did a lot of that, and I wanted to get into martial arts, but that's kind of a digression. But I just knew that it wasn't going to be something that my parents would afford for me. So I'm like, all right, well, I can either, and this is something that I give myself credit for, is that I realized something at, early teens, is I could either have this cause me problems the rest of my life and have this anxiety. Again, I didn't know it was social anxiety yet, but just have this sensation of panic that is stimulated by being around people I didn't know, or I could do something about it. So what had happened is that with these groups, whenever my friends, like, I knew that if I got too far away from my friends, and I couldn't give you the exact distance, maybe 6 feet away from my friends, and there was other people within 4 feet or 5 feet of me that I didn't know, and it would cause me to start feeling my heart, sweaty palms, things like that, like the standard panic attack kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, probably need to do something about this. Now I know what that is it's referred to as exposure therapy. But what I did is I started to expose myself to it. So in the groups, I would, if I was at that distance, I still felt good. I was looking at my people, whatever. And then, I would take one step backwards, and I ended up getting a little bit closer to people I didn't know. And then I started to feel this, like, oh God, started to feel that panic set in. But I then, because I intentionally did it, I got a little hit of adrenaline. And then I go, ooh, I kind of like that. I still feel panic, though. I still feel like, oh, God, I got to get away from these people. But it gave me this little, high. I'm like, wow, whoa, hey, what's that? And I'm like, all right, well, I could work with this. So it encouraged me to continue to try. And I'd get a little bit closer over time. And then before I knew it, I was actually facing this group of people I didn't know. And it's just various different groups of people. But often a lot of these kids, like, we all just kind of like had our spot. So everybody had their spot. So it wasn't like it was always this different group of kids. It was, people that, but I still didn't know them. And, before I knew it, I was actually facing that group. And then I started to, get a little bit closer. And then one day I just took a nice big step, and I'm in the circle of people. I'm not on the outside anymore. And they're talking and interacting and all of this. And then they get to, like, if somebody notices me, and they're like, kind of like, Who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, ah, shit, I've been found out, like, I got to do something here. And, I was like, yeah, I'd said something. It was just that's whenever I started using humor to diffuse stress. And I'm like, I said something and I thought it was funny to me, and then I kind of like backed out and like went over to my people, and I'm like, oh shit, and I when it like I hid it in plain sight with my friends, you know, but I kept doing this, and before you know it, then I'm starting to get to know people in that group over time, and then next thing you know, now I have two groups, and I'm like, I kind of like this, I get a little bit of adrenaline out of it. I don't feel like I'm being shackled by fear. So I continued to do this to myself. And again, in psychology, they refer to this as exposure therapy. I am not a psychologist. I have no ambitions of being that. I like to understand people, and I like to share perspectives in such a way that you could pursue somebody. By all means, if you want to go see a psychologist, please do. Um, just I'm always about mental structure and what's the thinking process, and try to free you from continuous therapy is a preference of mine. So it's not palliative, it's corrective. But anyway, that's my preferences, because I seek corrective. I don't want palliative. I don't want something that just holds me in place. I want something that fixes the problem, if you will. So structural thinking processes is typical for me, because that's what I'm after, and that's what the Maturity Project stands for. Uh, but it does not replace therapy. In no way. We're not competing. There's nothing like that. So just make sure it's clear, and that's a disclaimer that's out there now. So, but anyway, I continue to move along. Well, I did this for years. And so, but there was one moment that I recall, and this is whenever I was driving, right? I had a learner's permit, but I was, what was it? I was able to drive alone. I think I was like maybe 17. And I had one of my friends that said he was going to meet me at a mall. And it was Christmas time, right? And I needed to go get Christmas gifts. And I hadn't gotten any yet because I didn't have anybody to go with. I didn't know anybody at the mall. There was no way to practice what I had been practicing up until that point, because I needed to subtly get myself into that situation instead of just walking into a bunch of people I didn't know. Because again, I was dealing with social anxiety. So my friend said he was going to meet with me. Well, I am, it's an hour and 45-minute drive from where I live to where I was at. And I wanted to go in and get some stuff, and he was in the area because he was seeing a girl down there. And then he beeps. What was it? I had a pager at the time, or a cell phone. I think it was a pager. And then he paged me, and I got back in touch with him. He's like, "Hey, I'm not coming." I'm like, "Wait, what? You're not coming? I'm here by myself. And I got to get gifts, and I'm running out of days. I don't have time to go and like wait to do this again." And I had all these anxiety values that I couldn't do something with, and I was like, okay, well, I got to do something here. So he finally, I'm like, well, he's not coming. All right, well, I'm going in. Let's just go in, go straight to where I know that I need to go, find what I want to get, buy it, get the hell out of there. So I walk into the mall, and it is just bustling with people. There's just people everywhere. And immediately, as soon as I walk in the door, palms are sweaty, I'm breathing fast, I can feel my heart. I'm feeling like the whole process, right? The hairs on the back of my neck, all of that. I'm like, oh god, well, something. I'd like just get there, go there, wherever the hell there is. I had Spencer's and a few other places that I wanted to go to, and so I'm like, I start walking that direction, and then what happened to me in the hallway whenever I was in middle school, got me again. Felt like the walls were falling in on me. Well, I felt like everything was collapsing. The entire mall was falling on me, and everybody was looking at me and like what's wrong with that guy? Like that was what's going on in my head. And I felt this significant sense of like, I'm going to die. And I'm going to be so embarrassed whenever we have, the paramedics come in to get me, And I'm like, and all of this is not something physical, So I panicked. I was halfway, I don't know, maybe at the food court, which is typically in the middle of the mall, right? So I'm somewhere, I'm a ways out. I went through a store to get there, and I'd already passed a bunch of other stores. I'd probably been walking for about 20 minutes by that time, and then it just hit me. I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. I need to go. I didn't buy anything, by the way. I didn't make it to the first store. It all happened to me, and I'm like, holy shit, this is so scary. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And I could only imagine what I look like from other people watching me go by. It's like, what the hell is wrong with that guy? If you were to look in my eyes, you would see the greatest sense of panic, like as if there's a tiger about to eat me or something. You know, I was in so much anxiety. I had so much anxiety gripping me. Left the store, I left the mall, whatever, got in the car. I had to compile myself before I could drive. I had to pull myself together before I could actually even start the car. And then I said, Chad, you cannot let this thing control you any further. Everything you've done up to this point is not enough. You need to go further. You have to get over this. So I continued the process. I kept putting myself into situations. I started finding places that I was anxious about. But I get that anxiety reward from the endorphins, or I'm sorry, from the adrenaline. Like, wow, let's go, you know. So before you know it, I'm like, wow. I started to notice I felt less and less anxiety, but I started to become kind of an adrenaline junkie for it. I was putting myself into situations I really had no business being in. Yeah, I go up to people and groups of people that I really had no interest in getting to know, because it was like, I didn't have time to get to know them or something, and I'd like interject. I'd start conversations that was completely off topic from everybody else, that made everybody go, what is he talking about? Because I was so insincere, so ingenuous about what I was doing, because I wanted the adrenaline hit and I wanted the exercise to overcome it. So I put myself through a lot of stuff in order to overcome these things. So, by the way, community maturity, this is where I'm coming from, because look, I was in that community maturity of like next to nothing. Next to no one was allowed around me without me actually feeling upset in some way. Now, where this came from, I can't tell you. But I can tell you that I've gone through a lot of challenges in that world. I went from that to being insecure, because the previous episode that I did was about physical maturity and how I was the husky kid, the friends to everybody, but I never dated the girls that I wanted to date, because they were dating the guys that were popular, that were friends with me because I was friends with the girls that were attractive, and the girls were attractive like me because I was nice. And this like whole like Chad was just the middle guy that never got the girl. So I had those challenges going on, but I was I wasn't physically fit. I had a lot of my own issues that I was dealing with. So anyway, yeah. So then I get to the point where, okay, I'm self-conscious. I've got these physical issues, like I just don't think I'm attractive. I did get husky, chunky, I've got my friends with 6 packs, 8 packs, all the rest of that stuff. They're in great shape, and nobody wanted to date me. And then next thing I know, I'm like, I'm going to do a bodybuilding contest. Now I had social anxiety, right? And I was overcoming that. That was an exercise of overcoming social anxiety. I can't tell you how anxious I was when I did the bodybuilding competition. Again, it was something was put on by a radio station in a small town that was a river town, right? Like its home is Asa Crystal River, which in Florida, it's like they're just known for river towns and manatees and going to swim with those and that kind of things. But they had this thing called the River Rat Race, which all it was just a bunch of people floating around on rafts with an excuse to drink, right? So it was not like I was actually doing official bodybuilding. But they had judges. It was announced on the radio. You had to qualify to get into it. All this stuff. The one contest I did it. I competed 3 times in order to get to the finals. The first time I just didn't bet. I didn't get it. The second time, the guy that actually won it. There's a lot of stories along with that, like my father showing up and just like swimming in the wake of like his son, who's actually in decent shape, and trying to pick up women that were like excited by me. But anyway, that's a story for another time. But anyway, so the second one, dude looked like Fred Durst, but he never touched a weight room in his life, and he won over me, and I was like serious about fitness. And then the third one, I actually did win it, but I wasn't supposed to, because I was 20 and you had to be minimum 21 to do it. But I talked to one of the organizers, and he's like, look, he goes, I know you're really serious about this. When's your birthday? And I told him it was October. And the contest is in September. And he's like, it's close enough. Don't worry about it. He's like, the crowd voted for you. They want you to win. You won. You're going to the finals. But the song that I danced to was Macho Man. Oh, my God. The YMCA's Macho Man. Like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, so I did a bodybuilding competition, right? Like, mind you, I'm coming from, and this is all related to community because it is about my anxiety towards groups of people that I didn't know. So I went from I couldn't be around anybody that I didn't know, and then I go to, I'm gonna go and I get up on this stage, and I'm gonna go, I'm gonna take my shirt off, and I'm gonna show that I have made progress in my body, you know, and I'm gonna be judged by people. That was a deep fear the entire time, being judged by others. So I go up, I get on this stage. By the way, this stage is a pontoon boat. Okay? All of the contestants were in one hotel room, and it was a 2-story hotel right on the water. And we've got the women, which I didn't mind that at all, in bathing suits and all that. They look great, and almost all of them looked amazing. And then there's all these guys, and that's not the same story for us. It was like most of us are just like, that dude got here because he's charismatic and he is already drunk. He's probably not going on stage. And then there's this guy that is definitely on PEDS, performance. What is that? Performance. Shit. Oh, damn it. I forgot what it was. Performance increasing drugs or performance enhancing. Oh, I'm sorry. It's performance enhancing drugs. Um, Steroids and SARMs and things like that or whatever. But the guy's name's Gary. This dude was stacked. I mean, this guy was like, he was ready to go on stage in the amateur divisions. Like, this guy he was ready. And this other guy looked like, at the time, like, wrestling was big. And I was into it, but I wasn't into it like a legit, like, hey, everybody's really doing this for real. It was the entertainment values of it, because I kind of figured out that wrestling was fake already. I wasn't into is it fake? No, I already knew it. But this guy looked like Goldberg back in the 90s, and anybody remembers that. If you don't know, look him up online right now, like Goldberg. Back in then, and Goldberg's like, I don't know, 6'3", massive dude. I'm 5'10", right? This guy's massive, traps that come up to his ears. He's just this big dude. Well, this guy looked identical to him. He was every bit of 6'3", every bit of 300 pounds. And he looked like he was also competition ready. Not like Greg. Greg was bodybuilding competition ready. This dude was just like entertainment competition ready. He could have done WWE easily. He's doing push-ups and he's got 2 girls sitting on his back while he's doing push-ups in the hallway. And here I am like, yeah, one girl could get on my back maybe, and I'm going to struggle a little bit, but I'm not going to act like it because, hey, at that time I was probably 175, 180 pounds. So anyway, so we got big old Goldberg in there, big bastard, bald head, good looking guy, and he looked like a celebrity, so he already had an advantage, So Greg comes up to me in the hotel room. We got people over there with, bands, just getting the pump on before the competition starts. I've never done anything like this before. Don't know any of these people. And I walk in, I got my shirt on, I got my shorts, shoes, that stuff. I walk in, it's bathing suits and skimpy bottoms and all the rest of this stuff. And Greg walks over to me and he goes, "Hey bro, do you mind oiling me up?" I'm like, this dude, if I tell him no, he might kick my ass, because this guy, clearly this guy has tamed some weights in his life, and I'm learning to tame them, you know what I mean? And this guy really had his shit together. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm 20 years old. This guy's easily somewhere in his 30s, and he's like, "Bro, can you oil me up?" And he hands me, like, I didn't even answer him yet, and he's already handed me a bottle of baby oil. I'm like, all right. So then he turns his back and he's like, "Just make sure you get a good coat on everything, okay?" And I'm like, why me? There's so many people. And I look off and there's 3 women in the bathroom and they're all like adjusting their bathing suits and making sure they got everything and they look good and all this. And I'm looking at them like, God damn, these girls are very pretty, and I'm like, they're in amazing shape, and I've got this guy in front of me with his big broad back, like kind of like I'm looking over his shoulder to see these girls in the bathroom, and I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you ask them? You probably could have got all 3 of them to oil you up, man. And I'm like, golly. So anyway, I'm like, all right. So I reluctantly like, like, all right, let's go.
And then it, like real quick, and I phoned it in, man. I'm like, ah, and then the back of the hand. I just I did as fast as I could, and I did not get every part of his back. And he's like, "Make sure you get it good, dude." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got it. You're good, man. You're good." And like, I believe I squirted someone's back too. It's just like, get out of here, man. Because I didn't want to spend my time doing that. Like I'm still trying to adjust to being in this room of people that I don't even know. And I'm like, what the hell? I don't want to do this. And also at the same time, I don't want anybody in here to be like, oh, he's gay. It's cool. Like whatever. Because this definitely wasn't back whenever it was really overly, acceptable. It was in the 90s. And I'm not, by the way, I'm very heterosexual, but I don't give a damn if you're gay or not. It's your choice, your call, whatever. Just keep away from the kids. That's all I ask. Because I keep the heterosexual stuff away from them too. Anyway, so I'm like, all right. And then when I get done with that, that's whenever I go out, and I'm like, I need to get some air. So I go out the front door, and when I go out of the front door, there's that Goldberg looking guy, and he's got two girls on his back. One sitting closer to his low back, and the other one's on his shoulders with her legs over his. Like just sitting there, and he's just sitting there, just rocking out the push-ups. And I'm like, shit. There's no way I'm winning this contest. These guys. He looks better than I do. And then that guy, Greg, that son of a bitch is like, he's like, I don't know, 3% body fat. He's got veins with veins, and they're all pulsing. He's got, you could see the striations in his muscles, everything. This guy is bodybuilder ready. And here I am. I'm like, country bumpkin pretty much. So I go out, I see that, and I'm like, shit, I can't get away from like feeling insecure about this situation. But I'm like, you know what? No, I got here for a reason, and I'm doing this. So the contest starts. We go out on this pontoon boat, and it's just a platform-based situation with just the sides and all of that, and we got the seats in the back. And so we've got, first guy goes up, and I don't know, he's from Florida State or some stuff, and he goes and he does his thing. It's not that big of a deal. The radio personality that was there, her name is Mandy Rivers. I don't know if she's still on the radio or not, probably not. But she was a radio personality in Crystal River. I don't know what the range was that her station was over, but anyway, so she was the one that was doing all the interacting with all of us. So first, the girls go up and they do their version, and their version is to sublime what I got, loves what I got, and they're playing that, And then the guy's turn, right? And we're watching the girls, and like, God, these girls were absolutely just, I'd say almost all of them looked like it was something they were actually interested in doing. And they took fitness seriously, but they weren't like bodybuilders. They were just like, they were just in good shape. And then the guy's turn, and then the guys go up. First guy, FSU thing, and he's whatever. He's not in bad shape. Greg goes, and I'm like, thank God I'm not following that guy. And then the Goldberg guy goes. And the Goldberg guy goes, he walks up, he's talking to Mandy. And she's like, all right, well, when you're ready. And the music starts, and it's freaking Sweet Fantasy by Mariah Carey. Not the best song. In my opinion, I'd rather something a little bit more macho, but whatever. Something a little bit more, badass, But anyway, so he gets up, and as soon as the song starts, we all had to do the same song, by the way. So as soon as it starts, he takes this big sumo stance stomp broad, right? And as soon as he lands his leg, the whole frickin' boat rocks. All of us are on this boat, and this thing rocks because this guy does this thing. And I'm like, what the actual F, man? I'm like, this guy is damn near, he's well over double my weight. Well over, and he's in good shape. I'm so insecure about all this stuff, but I said, screw that. You are going to continue to push through because you are not going to let that anxiety get you. So I kept pushing. I'm like, nope, stay in here. And as I've shared before, I use humor to diffuse stress. I used to anyway, a lot. It was a coping mechanism that I had. And I still use it occasionally, but I try not to do it as much because, there's other ways of dealing with it and you can get more out of it than using humor. But it depends on a lot of reasons and factors, but I'll make the best decisions so the time is right. But anyway, back then it was like a default. I just use humor. So it was my turn. I go up. She's like, "So what's your name?" And I'm like, kind of timid, but like you could hear like like fluctuations and being insecure and then just being confident. It's a weird like fluctuation. And I'm like, "I'm Chad," and then I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm from Brooksville. I'm local, whatever." And pretty much everybody was local. This place has got to have 1,000 people. It's got to have it. All of these people up on the bank, and then they're looking right at us. And I mean, there is no break in this group. There is no bare spots, anything. It's shoulder to shoulder, full, across, as far as the space was open. So it had to have been at least 1,000 people. Oh, and she's like, "All right, well, you got your song. Let's go. Let's see you do some posing. Chad's looking great, isn't he?" And it's like the crowd's like, whatever. And I'm like, "All right." And I'm wearing like these like khaki shorts, fairly tight, And I take my shirt off, and I'm barefoot, no socks, And the music starts, and I start doing like some dancing. By the way, not a great dance. I'm not gifted in dance, although at that time specifically, I've had taken dance lessons since. So I'm not bad now, but I'm not great. But not bad. Back then, I was not even close to being that category of not bad. I was bad, except for the Latin dancing. But that was specific to the girl I was dancing with, and she's the one that would encourage me. But nobody else would be like, "Dude, you're pretty good." Most people would be like, "Hey, you're into her." Which could be you're into her because you look like a fucking idiot. But anyway, but you keep going. Anyway, so that was my level of dance ability. So I'm sitting up there and I'm doing my dancing and whatnot, and I'm like, all right. And the crowd's kind of like, it's kind of mediocre or whatever. And so here's the thing that I did for humor to diffuse some of the stress. Prior to this day, the night before, I'd asked my younger brother Craig and one of my childhood friends Jesse if they were going to come to my bodybuilding competition. I'd asked all my friends and family and all these people. Well, my best friend Adam did end up going, and the girl I was dating at the time, Sonia, she went as well. I gave Adam my camcorder. Somewhere out there, this video does exist. I just don't know where it is. Anyway, Jesse and Craig are both like, probably not going to go. Sitting on the front porch of our house where we grew up. And Craig goes, "What would be funny? If you put a tube sock in your pants to look like you're hanging meat." And I go, "I'll do it." And Jesse's like, "No, you won't. Shut up. No, you won't." And I'm like, "Yeah, I will." And they're both like, "No, you won't." And they're like, "All right." So guess what I did? Yes, I did. I had a long tube sock rolled into itself with the other part. So it was just two tube socks rolled into itself. And I had that in my shorts. And I made it look like I was John Holmes or, some incredibly gifted third leg guy. And yep, so I'm dancing and I'm making sure that I'm pushing that part out just to, and part of the crowd's like, I could see that some people seem to enjoy it. I didn't know if it was that or just the fact that I'm, whatever, maybe attractive in some other way. And then I just take my hand and I start sliding it down my chest, down my stomach, and I'm like, yeah, right? I get down to my belt line, and push my fingers past and go into my pants, my shorts. And then I stop after I get a good grip on the tube sock, and I look off into the crowd and I give this, oh, look, pause for a second, and then start to slowly pull that out. And you can see it moving in the shorts, by the way. And the crowd, I could hear gasps in the crowd. And then I pull the tube sock all the way out. And then I start shaking it around. And I'm like, and I look at it and I go, because again, I'm using stress. I'm using humor to diffuse stress. And then half of the crowd starts laughing. And the other half of the crowd is still gasping, going, what the hell? So it had to have been 1,000 people because it was so many people. So anyway, And I was done. The song was not done, and I still have more time, but I was done. I'm like, hey, whatever. So it was, you did that, right? You did it. You faced a fear. And as far as the community goes, now, did I make any really deep community values in this? Who knows? Who still, if it ever comes up as a story anymore? I mean, it's 24 years later, 20, almost 20, 25 years later now. Oh no, it's actually 24 in a few months. Um, two, 24 in 2 months, or 24 in a month. So anyway, 24 years in a 1 month. I just pulled a Rain Man. So that was, that was that, you know. But I faced something that there's no way, right? Walking down the hallway, the place is collapsing on me. I'm by myself. Nobody's around me. Fear of rejection, fear that people aren't going to want me around them. My community values were that I didn't matter and nobody would care about me. To going to the mall and then having it all collapse in on me again. After doing all the exercises to build up my confidence and to feel that I belong someplace and I'm not like a threat, and nor should I feel threatened. And then I get to that place where I'm like, oh my God, at the mall, it all collapses in on me again. And I got this major panic attack, almost to the point where if there would have been paramedics around me, they probably would have at least sat me down and calmed me enough to let me go or take me to the hospital. You know, and now here I am, a few years later, and I'm up on a stage, and I go from being chunky, and I feel that I'm not attractive, and all these things, and I'm up on stage, and I'm actually entertaining 1,000 people. You know, um, it's growth, right? Now, does this get me to some place for some sort of tribal association? No. Look, I don't want to be a part of a tribe. I want to bring us all together. You know, so I'll give you one more story, and then this will be it for today's episode. But as far as the community pieces go, facing fears, okay, I come from a lot of things. Like a lot of guys, we have nearly, and I would probably say every guy, but I can only speak for American men from my experience being an American. One of the things that men get teased about is also penis size, right? We get chastised. We get, even if people don't even know anything about it, they're like, yeah, whatever. You've got a big truck, you probably have a small one, right? If you have a lot of money, you're probably not well endowed. Whatever, people try to look to that as a way of qualifying somebody's value, right? So we all have had this exposure, and not having anything to validate anything, right? We just kind of default that maybe they're right. Who knows? And it's a haunting thought in the back of our head, whether it's true or not. And if you watch porno, it's going to really reinvest you in the fact that you're not well endowed, because you got people that are the outliers that are on the other end of the spectrum that are just, probably nobody's favorite because of that, or very few women's favorites because they're just over well endowed. But not to take it away, when we get to sexuality, that'll be one to talk about. But for now, just to put that as a placekeeper, I'm not saying that all women are that way or whatever. But anyway, so I've got a lot of insecurity about the way I look still after the bodybuilding thing, still there, but I'm in my 20s. I've actually get to the later part, or the mid part of my 20s. And I've got friends that like to go to places, nudist resorts, and they invite me to this place called Caliente, which is in Land O'Lakes, Florida. And I'm like, what the hell, I'll go. It's another thing that I felt anxiety when I asked to go, and I said, Chad, that's where you need to go because you feel anxiety and you need to address this. By the way, prior to this, I did go skydiving. I was invited by one of my high school friends that we reconnected in my early 20s, and she's like, hey, you want to go skydiving with me? So I got my best friend Adam to go with us, and I faced a fear of jumping out of a plane, and I'd always had a fear of heights. I did that. It was another exercise to overcome anxiety. Well, this one came up, and they're like, well, let's go to Caliente. I'm like, sure, I'll go. Why not? But I had to face that angst the entire time on the way there. I still felt some degree of anxiety about going there and being possibly getting naked in front of people I don't even know. So I'm like, whatever. I'm not telling people to do this, by the way. These are the things that I did to help address my anxiety. So I go, and I'm with my friends. As soon as we walk in, one of my friends, he was an attorney at this point, but very early end of his attorney life, he goes in with his girlfriend, who was the two people that invited myself, and then I invited a few other people. And not the first time, actually, it was the second time, but whatever, I'll save that other story for the first time for another time. The second time, but I still dealt with that anxiety. Invites us, and as soon as we get there, before they even take the keys for valet or to give us a towels and stuff going in, my buddy already dropped trial. He's butt naked, and I wouldn't even look in that direction. I was looking the other way, and I looked back up. Jesus Christ, starting already. Wow. And then anxiety hit me again. I'm like, oh, well, I'm probably gonna have to do this soon. We move into the resort, we get a few drinks and whatever, and it kind of like helps with the anxiety. And there is a tiki hut on the other side of the pool, the main pool, and you can hear that people are singing over there. Well, I sing karaoke because it is a fear of mine to be rejected based off the fact of how I sing, and I don't have high confidence in my ability to sing. Although, at this age and this time of my life, I have taken singing lessons, and I plan to continue those when time is right with my life circumstances. But at that time, I didn't have that, and I had always been insecure about singing. Well, my thing is face your fear, go after it, create the right environment to condition yourself so you're better, and you face it and you realize you're not going to die. You realize you're not going to lose your world. It's just you're going to face something and you're overcome it. That's where I was at with it. So anyway, we go back, and it's a tiki hut, and it's got, at the other end of it, that's where the KJ, karaoke jockey, DJs or disc jockeys, KJs or karaoke jockeys, he's in the back, and he's got his little, like, all of his setup and all that. I go up and I tell him what songs I want to sing, and then I go back to my seat, and then I take my clothes off, and I'm sitting there, and I've got my drink and whatever, and then the song comes on. They tell me it's my turn. It's several rotations later, but they tell me it's my turn. And I'm like, all right, well, here goes. I've got to face singing in public in front of people, which I've done karaoke, but clothed at regular bars or whatever. And I walk up, and as I walk up, here's one of those guys that you would see in the pornos, right? And I start just like, I'm using humor to diffuse the fact that I feel the way that I do. So I've got the microphone, and this is something I do often, is I just mess with people. As soon as I get the microphone before the song comes on, I'll just say whatever and try to entertain the crowd, because why not? People are there to be entertained, and I try to create a good time. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm not trying to cause hardships or harm or anything like that. I want people to enjoy themselves. Genuinely, that's where I come from, because I love people. So here I am, and I'm asking the guy what he feeds that thing, if he's named it, all this stuff. And then it hit me right before my song starts. I can see the look on his face. He's embarrassed. But he's not embarrassed because he's well endowed. The dude was embarrassed because I was making him the butt of the jokes. And I'm like thinking to myself, if I had that thing, Jesus Christ, I'd win every race, because that thing would be a cheat that I'd use to help give me an advantage in running, like that craziness, like, wow. So, and again, I'm very heterosexual. I'm just like, you're lucky, son of a bitch, that kind of thing. And so I'm like, okay. Well, then it hit me, and I'm like, Chad, for everything you stand for, you just violated that, because you just made that guy feel like he didn't belong here. And it just hit me. I'm like, God damn, man, you got to stop that stuff. Humor has value, but don't do that to people. Like, even now, it gets me, because like I don't want to hurt people like that, So anyway, I do my song, and I got to tell you, if you've never sang in public, it can be scary. Well, most people have dreams and fears of like showing up at school and find out you're in your underwear or stuff like that. Here I am. I willingly got naked. And then I sang, because I'm so geared for growth, that's really a thing for me, is geared for growth and grow through what you go through. Holy crap, man. What lessons that have come along. Like, I really want to bring community together. I don't want to separate it. So I feel bad for what I did that time, but at the same time, that wasn't the point of that story. The point of the story was to face your fears, because your community's not out to kill you. They're not out to take you. They're not out to destroy you. Your community is probably out to support you. They just need to know who the hell you are.
And that's something that I've been working on for a while because I kept coming from, they're just going to kill you, they're going to destroy you, they don't care about you, you don't matter. There's so many things you tell yourself that fall into that negative worldview that stimulates anxiety. And I've successfully overcome it. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have a maintenance piece that I'm required to deal with on a regular basis when I go into places and I don't know people. It just may not take me long to deal with it because I've become so strong with and so well equipped with dealing with that. But it doesn't mean I'm impervious. I still deal with those challenges. I just have a really good management system for it now. And it only strengthens itself with every opportunity and every event that I go through. So, anyway, well, I really do feel bad about what I did to that guy. Because it hit me, and this is damn near 20 years ago. So, hey, if you by chance are watching, sorry. And I won't ask you what you feed that thing anymore. I just hope you keep it healthy. It's got to have quite an appetite. Anyway. All right. Well, look, there's a lot more to this. There's 8 areas of maturity. I've gone over 2 so far. The physical body, health, fitness, those kind of things. This was community. There's more to community. The next episode will be on intelligence or cognitive. So look for that. If you're new to this, subscribe, hit the like and the bell notification. This is something that I'm putting together because I want to bring us all together. Together we're strong. And right now, for whatever reason, there are people out there that want us divided. I don't want that. I don't. And I'm doing everything I can to come up with a way to help people achieve their goals, create more harmony in our community, and bring us all together. Bring back our strength, and let's get our strength to replicate itself throughout the world. The United States became incredibly strong for a reason, and there's no reason we can't create this for everyone throughout the planet. But maturity is the key to get there. So this is the community aspect. There's a lot more to it. Stay tuned. Like the video. Help me with the algorithm so it moves up in the viewership and the suggested category. Subscribe to the channel. Let's move this thing forward with the community. Comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. From whatever you get from this video, I've decided that I'm going to let go of the look good, and I'm just going to be real with everybody, because that is part of my integrity. Wait till you get back to the physical again, and I talked about my condition and the challenges I've dealt with that thing. That'll be an interesting one. So stay tuned for that. But it's going to be a little while. I've got to get through the other 8 areas before I get back to physical again. So, anyway, all right. Remember, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. We do not need to create that pathway. The road that we create moving forward can easily be the one to the utopia we all want to live in. Let's lay the bricks to get to that place. Thank you, Susan. All right. Till next time. This is the Maturity Project. I am your host, Chad Everbrosiers, and forgive the emotions, but it got me. I love you guys. We can create the world you want to live in. We can create the world that we can all live in and thrive in. Let's do it together. Let's get up to some things, shall we? All right. Till next time. Catch you on the next one. Let's get up to it together.